The following podcast has been rated PGN. Parental guidance is neglected.
Boy, it's been a long time since we've had a little father-son chat.
I am your father.
Father, if you can hear me, I failed.
Don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I'm here with my dad.
I know what you're gonna say, son. And you're right. You're right.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
I've abandoned my boy!
Hey everybody, welcome to the PGN podcast. Jackson, episode number 51.
It's a big milestone.
It's
51.
Even it's bigger than 50. Why
it's a big deal.
Why do I look red? I don't even give a crap. No one's watching.
Yeah, who knows? I am actually sunburned right now, so I probably look more red than you do.
You look great. You have natural lighting. I'm in a dark closet with a shitty ring light and not a closet.
Yeah.
I'm back in your bed.
One of these days we'll get a professional Joe Rogan-esque studio. And we'll have cool things in our backyard
with a red curtain.
Our background, I mean.
Yeah, big red curtain and I don't know, neon lighting. It is the Parental Guidance is Neglected podcast. It's two generations of movie talk coming to you from Gen Z and Gen X. Am I right? Did I get that right? Gen Z, Gen X? Am I? I always
I'm Gen Z and you're Gen X. That sounds right to me.
How long before you have a baby so we can make this a three-way podcast?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, start pumping out
a long time, hopefully.
Yeah, have a kid out there, and we could start doing a little. We could break down the Disney Pixar movies every week.
I like the concept of having a kid just
for the podcast.
Just for the podcast.
Yeah. My son is back from his jaunt in Texas. He's back, as you can see if you're watching on the YouTuber, back in his home down in Southern California. And how was your trip? First off, by the way, what'd you think of Texas? Remembering that we probably have 2, maybe 3 listeners in the Texas area. What was your takeaway? It was your first time to the Lone Star State, wasn't it? Or you went as a kid, I think, for a wedding.
No, I went as a kid, but that was in San Antonio, which is not where I was. I was all the way across, and I went to Dallas, and then I went to Austin for a few days.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Not for you?
I think.
Yeah.
You know, I think that everyone really hyped up Austin to be like L.A.
Right.
And it wasn't to me, which is okay. But no, I don't know. I wish I had gotten to spend a little more time in Austin just to explore the city more. And I never did get to spend much time in downtown Dallas. I was mostly on just like the suburbs. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
it was a good time though. I was with my girlfriend, and that was great. She should be here at some point. And she's downstairs right now.
Look at that! It's a teaser. We have a guest star today. Maybe
guys, first guest. Maybe
maybe a guest star.
I want to say a word or two, and then we'll just boot her.
Yeah, I mean, I have not been to Austin, but everything I've heard about Austin is a fantastic city for Texas. Meaning,
that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
That's actually a great way of putting it.
Yeah, for Texas, it is a great city. Well, welcome back. He's back in SoCal. As you can see, he's back in his home, and I am now back in his bedroom. Basically, this is the poster podcast. So it's all Jackson's personality.
I've done all the decor.
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for listening. We're going to be breaking down some new movies that are in theaters. We're catching up with some of the award entry movies that are coming up, and even have one that just I will have a review of the very first movie of 2024, which historically, I don't know if you want to look back, Jackson. They're usually not very good. We're
in the rough season now. So.
Yeah, we're getting into it's going to be a couple weeks, and we'll talk about what's coming up in the weeks ahead as well. A lot of countdowns, more Love It Like Me, and some other surprises. In the meantime, though, before we get into our movie talk, Jackson, you are taking a pretty interesting class right now over a what we call your college calls it's called interterm. But for those who don't know what that means, before his spring semester begins, his school offers an opportunity for students to come back a little bit early and kind of cram one class over the course of like 4 or 5 weeks. He chose an elective for his film studies there. I'm very curious. I talked to you briefly, and you said things look good. And I know you've taken how many classes now? Two classes of this?
Just the one.
Just the one class. Do you want to tell people what you're taking and what my hard-earned money is going towards?
It's a Barbenheimer class. So it's a class where
Barbenheimer.
We're analyzing and reading the scripts for both Barbie and Oppenheimer to figure out where they succeeded, where they went wrong, plot mapping it, understanding like the writing processes and how they fit into different script archetypes, things like that. So the first class was great though. It was literally just a two almost 3 hour discussion of just like, what did you think about Barbie?
Right.
Why was it funny? Why wasn't it? Why did they do this? Why did they not do this?
Yeah. Now, is the class, or has the professor mentioned if you're going to go into the phenomenon? Because the movies don't interest me as much as the phenomenon of just these two movies, polar opposites, attracting so many people to see both. People were like, you have to see both.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not about that at all. It's more so just like, I mean, just the movies themselves and why they were successful in their own right.
Now, you told me the first class dealt pretty much primarily with Barbie, correct? Yeah. And for our regular listeners, Jackson didn't pan Barbie, but he was certainly not that big of a fan of it. I was pretty
split. I was down the middle.
Down the middle. What seems to be the general thought from the people, at least in this class? Are you in there with a lot of Barbie fanatics? Are you in there with people who are like, I hated this movie, but let's just talk about why stupid people like it? Or are you? Well, I mean, what's the field like in your class for that?
Everyone liked it. It seemed, but it was definitely. Is it bad for me to say that talking about it more made me like it less?
Well, sometimes, okay. Sometimes you like something less if you think it's being overanalyzed, or if you're like, people are giving it way more credit than it deserves. So
there was definitely some points where people were. I don't think so, because there were some moments where people were really overanalyzing it, and I was like, guys, I feel like we're doing like.
Yeah.
No, this wouldn't matter unless you were looking at it through a microscope. I was defending the movie sometimes in class. But,
okay.
But sometimes I was thinking about it, and I was like, God, man, was it really as good as I remember? I have to watch it again this weekend, so
okay.
I have to watch it again and do a bunch of like typing while I watch to plot it out. But
let me know if you want me to send you the screener. If you want to just if you're watching it at home, I can.
Good point.
Or maybe you're supposed to see it on a big screen, although I don't think it's playing anywhere.
It's not playing anywhere. Yeah.
Just send me a text and I'll send that off to you.
Cool.
Okay, well, I'm going to be very interested. Let's check back in next week. Is it going to be is it going to be like the first half is all Barbie and the second half is all Oppenheimer? Or okay, so it's all Barbie talk for a while. Oh, I'm very curious. Very curious to hear how you're going to come out the other end. Thinking about that. I loved Barbie, and I also very, very much liked Oppenheimer, but. Well, let's not, for those who remember our grades, but we are getting very, very close to time for us to start breaking down our top best films of the year and our not best films of the year. And we're talking about some titles. Jackson actually texted me this week and he was like, hey, should we get our top 10s together? And I feel like there's still a few more weeks of movies that I know that I at least want to try and see.
Yeah.
And I do want to see what the Academy's going to say when they release their nominations, which I think are next week after the Golden Globes this weekend. But
I believe so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's still a few films out there. I still need to see Asteroid City, Maestro.
I need to see Maestro too. Asteroid City has grown on me. I've been thinking about that movie. I think I might have mentioned this to you at some point, but I've been thinking about that movie quite a bit.
Well, I sent you Cinefin's top 10. Here we go. Well, big roadblock. Wow, we were just on a great train of thought.
I can't be too mean.
Well, hello there. Hello, young lady. She can't hear me, but tell her I said hello.
She can't hear you. My dad says you should leave, and he hates you.
That's not even remotely what I said. Could you see my head shaking?
That's not what he said at all.
Yeah. Yes, I assume.
I hope I'll put it to the side for a bit.
We might. Jackson's young lady friend is in the background, and we.
No, you're good.
No, you're absolutely good. We might even be coming to you with some thoughts in a little bit there, young lady.
She did see Iron Claw.
Oh, week, okay. So I'm going to get at least
check in.
At least a thumbs up or thumbs down on that. I sent you that top 10 list that Cinefin did of their 10 best movies of the year, and I was very surprised that Asteroid City was on their list of the 10 best films of the year, especially since it really was.
Hold on one second. You just totally cut out.
Oh,
am I?
Yeah, I know. We're good. Sorry, we're good.
Oh, you're back now?
For a quick second, you were in Brooke's headphones. That's just funny to me.
Oh, I love that. I was whispering sweet nothings. Hello, Brooke.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I think that Asteroid City just took some time to sink in because it's like, it's very... Listen, stylistically, it doesn't take many risks, but I think that it's really interesting in the way of... It's really the first time that I've seen Wes Anderson show himself on screen a bit, where it's like, I don't know, it felt like his most introspective piece. The first time I've seen him be like, hey, this is how I feel about what I'm doing.
Right. I'm going to try to see that one. I think the ones that I really need to see are Maestro.
Yeah,
I always don't know how to pronounce that. Maestro or Maestro? It's Maestro, right? No, Maestro.
I think it's Maestro.
Maestro,
yeah.
And I really do want to see All of Us Strangers before I make any top 10 lists, because
we are going to see that this week as well.
Yeah, I can send you that one as well if you'd like. And Color Purple, Boys in the Boat. I mean, so we're just not quite ready to make our top 10 list just yet, because I don't want to pull I know we did that a couple years ago a little early, and then we both went and saw the worst person in the world, and we were like, hold the fort. We were like, wait, big addendum on our top 10 list. Yeah. So if there's a couple out there that I think might have a shot of sneaking on there, so we are working on our 10 best and our 10 not best list, but that'll be coming up in the weeks to come. With that said, one of the films, and I won't go into this too deep, that I finally finished, that Jackson gave a fairly good review of. I'm not sure.
I gave it a 7. I gave it a 7.
Gave it a 7. Was Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. I finally finished it. Director Martin Scorsese's very long, and yes, probably too long, story of the brutal and horrific raping of both the people, the land, and the wealth of the indigenous people back in Osage. Leonardo DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone, De Niro, Jesse Plemons. Most people, look, this movie's been out forever. I don't want to harper on it. I liked it. I did enjoy it very much. Look, it's Scorsese. It's masterfully acted. It's beautifully shot. The score is interesting. I'm not going to say anything bad about Killers of the Flower Moon, except that, one, I do feel it just drags in certain points. I do not think this had to be a 3.5 hour film. It certainly would be in the conversation of Scorsese's, I'd say, top 10 films. But I don't think it would crack my top 5 Martin Scorsese movies of all time.
I would agree with that. I think that it was definitely, from his most recent releases, I think this was definitely a standout. Like, I think that this is, for me, far above, like, The Irishman, or I don't know, any of the like more recent Scorsese films. I think this one.
No, I mean this is miles better than Age of Innocence or one I always forget with
Silence.
Silence with Garfield and Driver, and he's had some clunker. I'm not a big fan of Last Temptation of Christ, but I don't know if I'm going to put this up there with Raging Bull and Taxi Driver and even Gangs in New York, but. Killers of the Flower Moon, because it's Scorsese, it's what it is. It is. I can't go. It's a B+ for me. It's just a little bit below an A. So I think I'm pretty much.
How'd you feel about that ending?
I really thought that was a creative and interesting ending with the radio play, but I got out of it the second I saw Martin Scorsese in a cameo.
Oh, really?
I was like, oh, don't do a Hitchcock. It took me. It took me right out of it.
But it felt. No. I don't know. It felt like it needed to be like.
I don't like director cameos.
It felt right for me.
Did it? I did not. I was like, what a great way to end it with the radio play. I thought that was really a brilliant way to wrap, because God knows they could have shot another hour of this story, but someone finally said, Martin, let's wrap this thing up. I just did not need to. He did not. It took me out of it, because then I saw the filmmaker and I didn't see the film. So I was not a fan of his cameo. I just
felt that felt right to me. I enjoyed the ending quite a bit.
Yeah. I also, I really didn't know a lot about. I mean, I knew a lot about the overall story, but I didn't know a lot about Leonardo DiCaprio's character. He really is evil in this. I mean,
hey, he does love that money.
He does love that.
I'll tell you right now, he does love that money.
He does love that money, but I mean, I think it was your mom pointed out to me that during the planning for the house explosion, when they hire the guys to blow up the house, he thought his kids were going to be in a sleepover that night, and was okay with that. Like, he was going to have his own kids murdered, and I think they kind of gloss over that a little bit. But
the one scene that always they cast this guy. I've never seen him in anything before, but it's the most evil looking person I've seen in my life.
Which one's that?
And it's the guy he's talking to his lawyer, and he's like, "So if my kids were to die, I would get their head rights, right?"
Oh, yeah.
And the lawyer's like, "Are you saying that you're going to murder your kids?" And he's just like...
he's like, I'm just asking.
He was so great in that, though. That guy came out of nowhere. I thought that all of the supporting cast, I mean, as great as Leonardo is, and really... De Niro, I think, also.
Some of De Niro, De Niro's best work in a lot. He's been kind of phoning it in the last decade. This was back to true form for De Niro. Yeah.
No, this was definitely, I think, a chance for him to try something a little bit different than he usually goes for, and I really did enjoy that. But the supporting cast, I thought, held their own just as well. All those guys look straight out of a spaghetti western.
Except for one, I thought, glaring bad performance. And it was not in the movie very long.
I don't know what you're going to say.
I did not care for Brendan Fraser in this. He's not in it very long.
Really?
But I thought he was a little, and I mean this not literally, he was a little big, a little over the top for me.
But I thought it worked because he's supposed to be this like old Southern lawyer who's like very because he doesn't get that moment where it's like when he's alone with DiCaprio. I love that scene where he's like, "What the hell are we like?" You're tearing this whole thing down. Do you really want this for your people?
I didn't. I think a little miscast. I think a little miscasting on that. I think just a.
Oh, fair enough. I disagree, but fair enough.
But look, this is excellent film. I mean, it's left theaters now, and thank God, because I might have had a different feeling if he made me sit in the theater for 3.5 for this. I might have been like, oh, enough already. But I'm not going to say a masterpiece, but another great entry from Martin Scorsese. That's a B+. Before we get to our other two awards fodder movies, there are two films that I saw in the theater, and I'm going to spend maybe 2 minutes talking about either one of them. I saw the first half of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
The first half?
Yeah, the first half, because I decided my life is too precious to me, and... I could think of, I hadn't been to the gym yet, and I went, nope, I'm not sitting in for more than an hour of this. James Wan is back, who directed the first one that I hated. I should have known better.
Oh, boy.
Maybe I'm just thinking I didn't have enough fodder yet for my not best of the year list. Amber Heard is in this, but boy, did they get rid of her right away, because it is not about it. You could tell they were like, we cannot have Amber Heard in this movie.
Yeah, we can't take this.
I don't know who cast Patrick Wilson in this, but he is not. He is as Aquaman's brother. This is a movie about two brothers arguing and getting together to fight Black Manta. It's a CGI fest. They're trying to interject comedy because Aquaman's now a dad, and guess what? When he's changing the diaper, the baby pees on him. You haven't seen that in a...
God, they did a diaper peeing on the dad bit.
Yeah, they did it twice. They did it twice. They did it twice with the first... Yeah, twice.
Hey, and maybe more. I mean, who knows? You didn't see it through, so that could have been more.
So anyone who saw that, once the brothers got together and decided to go after him, I don't care if they ever catch him. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, It's a solid F.
Wow.
I just
they did. I was scrolling through Twitter and I caught a clip, and somehow they got Willem Dafoe in this. I don't know if you got that far into.
Well, he was in the first one. I don't
remember that.
Yeah, he's the villain in the first one. I don't know if he ends up coming back in this one, but he was.
I don't remember a single thing about the first one, to be fully honest. But I saw a clip of Willem Dafoe on a beach, and he's talking to this. I don't know if it was supposed to be a young Aquaman, but it's a kid. It's like someone my age probably.
Yeah, I think that's the first.
They've got a trident, and it may be, all due respect.
Yeah.
The worst performance I've seen of the year. It might be. It's pretty tough. Not from Dafoe, because Dafoe is listen. Say what you will about Willem Dafoe, but he's nothing if not someone who commits. But,
he knows how to read a line. I mean, he's not going to...
Yeah, but he was playing against what I can only call a brick wall, so it's unfortunate.
If you're watching this, I might have had things pop up on the screen right there, and if so, that's my fault. Well, now you know now you know what my toolbar looks like. Also, I got out to the theaters to see the very first movie to open in 2024. That's the January 5th release date of the horror movie, I believe from Blumhouse, because I think Blumhouse is now responsible for pretty much all these. This is a movie that was produced by James Wan, who did Aquaman, and it's from first-time at least feature director-writer Bryce McGuire. It's based on a short film he did called Night Swim. That's the title of the movie as well. It's about an hour and a half, roughly long. It's one of those ins and outs horror movies about a baseball player, professional guy who is suffering from the onset of multiple sclerosis and suddenly finds that the pool in his new family's home has magical healing abilities. But with every wish, Jackson, comes a cost. Here was the most shocking thing about... Look, I wasn't expecting much from Night Swim. It's your typical standard horror film.
Yeah.
The woman in this is Carrie Condon. Oscar nominee for the Banshees of Inisherin. My favorite film of last year.
Actress. Phenomenal actress. Great performance.
And just fine in this, but imagine such a wonderful actress having to say lines like, "Something's wrong with the pool," or "Why?"
Yeah, that's rough.
What are you saying? There's no voices coming from the pool. This is silly. It's stupid. The only thing I will say is that they have some pretty effective water shots. Hats off to the camera crew that finds at least some imaginary things to try to make a swimming pool terrifying. Don't go into the pool. Night Swim is keeping the tradition of probably becoming one of the worst movies of the year, being released first in the year. Because it was in focus and it's very, very short, it gets a D- on my list. So
wow. Yeah.
Wow. All right. If I remember that.
I won't say I'm rushing to go see that.
Night Swim.
Yeah. Before we get into the movies that we both saw, I was in Big Bear this weekend, and
that's right.
The person who drove me and my friends lost her car keys, and so we were stuck in Big Bear for probably 4 hours.
Oh, okay.
And so. Yeah, it was bad. We had to call a sheriff to pick us up because we were freezing cold and had nowhere to go. But we ended up going into town, and they had a movie theater, and we had about 2 hours until her parents came to drop off the spare key for us to get home.
There's a movie theater in Big Bear. There's a movie theater in Big Bear.
There's a very small movie theater in Big Bear.
It's got to be small.
They were playing 3 movies.
Can I guess? Here
were our options.
Can I guess? I'm going to guess the 3. Okay, what day was this? This week?
This was 2 days ago.
Okay, was Night Swim one of them?
No.
Okay, no. So, I'm going to say your choices were The Iron Claw.
No.
Damn. I'm going to say, is this a trick question? Is this like an art house movie theater?
No, it's not. They're all new movies.
Okay. I'm going to say Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom.
Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was the first option. That was the first. Oh God, I hate sticking things to
thumbs up. I see the thumbs up.
All right, that was our first option.
Give me a hint.
You've seen it.
I've seen it. Oh, is it a drama?
No.
Is it a superhero movie? The Marvels. I haven't seen the Marvels.
Nope.
Give me another hint.
Musical.
Oh, Wonka.
Wonka was our second option.
Oh my God!
And our third option,
two Fs from me
our
so far.
third option that we went with was the newest movie from Illumination, who does the Despicable Me movies. Migration.
Oh, by all means, boy. Jackson. Let's get a review on Migration, which I believe is tanking.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, here's the thing.
Tried to be friendly.
Listen,
about it.
It's whatever. You know, it was like it was an hour and a half, and it was like a very basic. You know, like it's a story of a family of ducks, and the father is very scared of the real world and doesn't want to leave his pond, but his kids and his wife end up convincing him to all take a trip to Jamaica, and then they have to try to get there. And it's cute. It has cute moments, and it's a little silly. If I was a kid, I'd be entertained for an hour and a half.
Right.
Is there a few things to mention though?
Yeah.
Kumail Nanjiani is the lead in this.
Okay.
Really not a great voice actor in my opinion. I do like some of Kumail Nanjiani's work. I think that he can be very funny. But it felt very uninspired, especially compared to the rest of the voice cast. Danny DeVito is also in this as like the old uncle.
Okay.
So that's something.
There's something
to talk about. I also really don't like Illumination's animation style. It's really interesting because
they do the Despicable Me's, right?
Yeah. It's that really like over the top like 3D crap. And it's so weird to me because this movie also started with a short film, like a short Minions short, before the actual movie starts. And no matter what theater you see it at, you'll see the Minions short. They're playing it before everything. And it made me think, like, it's like they're the only animation studio where they have, like, one thing.
Yeah.
You know? You hear Pixar and you think of a million things. You hear, like, Studio Ghibli and you think of a million things. You think Illumination just has Minions.
Yeah.
And anytime they try to do anything that isn't Minions or Despicable Me, it tanks. And this was one of them.
And it kind of looks like Minions, too, though. Like, even the movies that are Minions has that worldly, that same kind of very circular, round feel to it. It's a very smooth-edged animation, I would say. Is there any were you watching this, was there like any comparisons or like kind of like underlying themes of like the pond is Mexico and the family should migrate to America or no political underlinings?
I wish it would have made it a lot more interesting. It was more so it was the reason that we saw it is because a friend of mine had seen it intoxicated, and he was like, "This movie's so awesome," and I was like, "All right, yeah." And then he saw it sober, and he was like,
"Oh my God, what an idiot!"
But it was listen, it was a good way to spend 2 hours that we needed him to stay warm and not freeze to death. But it was not a great movie. I'm gonna give Migration a 3.
A 3. Sounds like you're being generous. Because it's for kids.
Because at the end of the day, it's a kids movie, and it's like, but it's not even. Sometimes you do see a kids movie, and it's like Up or like Spirited Away, and you're like, wow, this is still like as an adult fantastic and impactful. No, nope.
Were there kids in the theater, and if so, were they enjoying it?
Yes, only families. It was like 3 families and then us. The kids behind us kept talking, and the parents kept shushing them, so I couldn't tell if they were trying to comment on the movie or if they just weren't paying attention.
Yeah, probably a combination of both.
It's whatever. If you got a kid 7 or younger, take them to go see this movie. You know, there are worse kids movies out there.
Gotcha.
I'll put it at that.
All right, it's the PGN podcast. We're going to be breaking down every single animation movie this year. Jackson told me earlier he promises to go to every kid's cartoon film this year, no matter.
Yeah, that's my New Year's resolution is to see every kids film.
It's called Jackson's Pretentious Kids Corner. From this point on, we get to hear
Guys, get ready next week. I'm going to be reviewing the straight to streaming Barney's Day Off. It's going to be great.
It's going to be so good.
Heard good things.
I look forward to that.
Talking. It's got some Oscar buzz.
Speaking of Oscar buzz, 2 movies that are vying very, very hard this award season. I don't know if they're going to get them, but who knows? Or if they deserve them. Let's find out. Jackson and I both took in 2 movies that have been critical darlings, but have struggled to find a bit of an audience, which is not always necessarily a sign of whether a film is great or good or even bad. The first of which is The Iron Claw. For you Zac Efron fans out there, yes, there is no singing in this. There is no dancing. And Zac Efron has changed, and we'll get into that a little bit later. This is from director-writer Sean Durkin. He's kind of been on the peripheral. He kind of got a little notoriety for a small independent movie that got some heat a few years ago called Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. It's, as I said, this stars Zac Efron from Moulin Rouge and last year's bomb, The Greatest Beer Run Ever.
Zac Efron was in Moulin Rouge?
Yes. No, I'm sorry, The Greatest Showman. I knew it was one of those.
There you go. I was like,
they're both, to be honest, they're both kind of the same. Jeremy Allen White, who is kind of the it guy at the moment because of his hit show The Bear, is in this as well. And Harrison Dickinson from one of Jackson and I's favorite films last year, Triangle of Sadness, along with Maura Tierney.
That's where I knew him from.
Yes.
Oh, I spent the whole movie going, what is this guy from?
Yeah.
It totally is Triangle of Sadness.
Yeah, Triangle of Sadness, Harrison Dickinson. And then Holt McCallney, who is so great in the TV show Mindhunters, is the patriarch of the family here. This is loosely based on the infamous Von Erich wrestling family, who in the 70s and 80s were apparently a force to be reckoned with in the world of wrestling. I really would not know. That was never my thing. It's a small Texas family with 4 boys and 1 washed-up wrestler for a father who has no problem telling his sons which one is currently his favorite or reminding them that their path in life really, 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 really should involve wrestling. It is a tragic story. I don't know how much of it is completely accurate. At the beginning it says it is inspired by a true story, and I do know that this family did in fact exist. I do know that many believe they had been cursed. Maybe because we know that right off the bat, I think some of the moments are a bit telegraphed. But I have some other thoughts on the Iron Claw. But first, Jackson, what did you think?
I know that before I get into my review, one of the things they did change is that there was another brother that also died, and they had to cut him because they said that it was going to be too depressing.
Oh man!
So there was actually another full other character in death that happened in real life that they ended up cutting out. But
good Lord, that makes well, I don't want to spoil it, but that makes a lot of numbers.
Yeah. I'll start with my critiques because I did like this movie quite a bit, but I want to get them out of the way. Mm-hmm. I think this movie's biggest problem is its pacing.
Yeah.
I think that we go very quickly in a very knee-jerky way from like happy-go-lucky family to I think especially the first. I guess this is based on a true story, so I'm not too worried about spoilers. But spoilers ahead in case you're curious. I think the first death really gets sped over, and then we spend a lot of time with the next two. Mm-hmm. But I think that first death, especially because they really highlighted that character as being like a big part of the story, just happens so fast, which could have been intentional, but again, I think that it kind of pulled me out of it and wasn't as effective. Mm-hmm. That's kind of it, though. That's kind of all I have. I like this movie a lot, and I was a wet mess by the end of it. I cried my eyes out to this movie. I think that the ending was... Brooke will disagree with me on this because I know that she wasn't a huge fan of the ending, but I thought the ending was incredibly tasteful. I loved the scene at the end with all the brothers, and Zac Efron, I think, had a fantastic performance. Also, I think this is one of the best shot movies of the year. I think it looked phenomenal. I loved the look. I loved the lighting. I loved the camera movements. They were creative without getting in the way. I wasn't thinking about the camera the whole time, but in retrospect, they did a lot of really great camera stuff there. Yeah.
This is a really, really good biopic, and I say that kind of like half and half. Like, it's a really, really, really good film, but it's also kind of a biopic, and I feel like it kind of follows a familiar pattern, and kind of biopics kind of have to. Like, this is where we start, this is what happens to them, and here's the epilogue of how it all ends. So it's hard for me to get too excited about the Iron Claw. It's incredibly well acted. I will tell you this, I felt like the one person that I had the hardest time kind of glamming onto or really identifying with was probably the it guy, Jeremy Allen White's character, Carrie.
I would agree, but I don't think that was a performance issue. I think it was a writing issue.
I think
him,
I do too.
Not enough screen time.
Yeah, not enough screen time. He comes into the movie about halfway through. We don't really get to know his character. He's an Olympian, and suddenly his dad goes, "You should be a wrestler," and he's like, "Yeah, let's wrestle." And I could never tell if he was passionate about that or he was still bitter from his Olympic days. Or did he want to be there? Did he not want to be involved? Obviously, the most attention in this film is paid to Zac Efron's character. And I think Zac did a very good job. I cannot not address the two elephants in the room. One, his face does look incredibly different since the tragic accident in his personal life. For those who don't know, Zac Efron slipped and fell in his home and severely damaged his jawline and face and had to have a lot of reconstructive surgery. So just physically, he looks different. Also, it is very, very apparent that Zac Efron is on HGH, human growth hormones, for this movie.
He's got spaghetti gut out the butt, man.
He's got big spaghetti gut. He is 20 times bigger than either Jeremy Allen White and Harrison put together. It's like he looks like he's auditioning for a Rocky villain, and the other guys look like what those wrestlers. Those wrestlers did not look like that in the 70s, 80s. They were all fat, redneck, Southern. I mean, especially I think the one that got the look the most was the Triangle of Sadness actor, who really it wasn't like that cut, but he had that he looked huge. He looked big without being like, Sisyphus. Yeah, Zac Efron looked like he was going to be in the next Expendables movie. The other guys looked like they were in a 1970s wrestling film. So that did take me a little bit out of it. I do also think that some of the tragedy was slightly telegraphed. I'm going for a ride on my motorcycle. Or, Dad, I bought you this gun. There were just certain things.
That is a good point. A lot of moments where it's like, okay,
well, here it comes.
I wonder where this is going to go.
Because you kind of there's a little bit telegraphed. But with that said, really, really good ensemble work here. I like Maura Tierney as the mother a lot. I think that she said a lot without saying much.
Agreed.
I probably would side with Brooke a little bit on this, and I'd be curious to hear what she says. I wasn't crazy about the dream sequence at the end.
Oh, that was my favorite part.
I didn't hate it, but I was kind of like, ooh, did it need this little gathring around the pond and you must be my big brother? And I was like, oh.
In my heart of hearts, probably cheesy and didn't need to be done. But like, me watching the movie, God, that really destroyed me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just something about the way that it was just shot, and just that interpretation of the afterlife made me really emotional. And then again, Zac Efron, I think, had one of the best line reads at the end with that moment at the end with his sons.
That I thought was very touching with the boys. I thought that was the note. That's the note that I liked ending on. I don't know if I needed the canoe and the boat ride, but with that said, it certainly did not ruin the movie for me. I enjoyed it very much. The performances really, I think, elevate this a little more. And again, it's our job to nitpick a little bit, but I think it's absolute. I don't know. I agree with you, Jackson. I wouldn't be like, cinematography, but I think if that was an award it garnered, I certainly wouldn't be against that. I would love to see it in the SAG Awards where they have the category of best ensembles, because I felt
that's a good category. I wish that they would do that in more awards.
Yeah,
I like that one.
SAG does the ensemble, and I think that, I believe they were a family from the get-go. Sure. I really, really enjoyed the Iron Claw. For me, it's a solid B.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at a cinematography nomination. A win would be a little much for me, I think. I think there are better shot films from this year, but I definitely would like to see this nominated. Listen, Do I understand that it's a little bit biopic-y, of course. Is it a little predictable at times? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just had a really great response to this movie. I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up somewhere in my top 10.
Oh.
I'm going to give this an 8.
Oh,
I
wow.
really did enjoy Iron Claw a lot.
Yeah, it was. I agree with you. I think you maybe just a tiny bit more than me, but again, a B is not a bad rating for me. But really, no one is listening to the show to find out what I think about the Iron Claw or what you think about the Iron Claw. What we really need is the female perspective.
Yeah, Brooke, you want to come here and talk about Iron?
So
she's fully headphoned in.
She's headphoned.
Iron Claw, you want to give thoughts?
Come here. I need a thought. I need a
thoughts. No one ever.
She's so
I need your thoughts. Okay. Yeah. So she can't hear me. So
nobody ever cares what I think.
So
here, come take a kneel.
Yeah, take an earplug. Hi, Brooke. How are you? Welcome to
Hi.
Parental Guidance is Neglected, the only podcast with two generations of film aficionados talking movies. We wanted a female perspective on the Iron Claw since we have you. Jackson enjoyed it immensely. He gave it an 8. I also very much enjoyed it. We nitpicked a little bit, and I gave it a solid B. Highly recommend. What did you think, though? Oh, 2 things. I want to know your overall thoughts on the movie, and I want to know your thoughts on the, let's call it the fantasy scene at the end of the movie.
I mean, we've already talked about this a little. I liked the movie. I thought it was really solid. I did not enjoy it as much as him. I gave it a 3.5, which I don't know what that's.
Out of 5?
Yeah, that'd be a 7. Yeah.
7, yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
out of 5.
Uh-huh.
So that would be a 7. The fantasy... I didn't like the fantasy scene at all.
I didn't either.
I wish they didn't have it.
I didn't...
I thought it was a little cheesy.
I know, but it just made me so sad. I just felt sad.
I think that there are some things that if like that scene was put in and someone was like, I really liked it, I'd be like, that's dumb. But I feel like this, I can like see why you enjoyed it. For me, I was like, you know, you see him running, like he has his feet again, and then I see his brothers and they're just sitting there like this.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't get behind that. I tried.
I think the hardest line for me in the whole thing was like, you must be my big brother. Or,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's awkward. It's awkward for the child actor.
Well, for me, it was much more powerful, like the end thing where he's like crying and he's like, well, I used to be a brother. That to me was much more real than like fantasy dream sequence of all of the dead brothers.
Okay, what about Zac Efron? Obviously former teen idol. He's now a little bit bigger, a little bit square. What did you think about him overall?
I thought he gave a beautiful performance. I thought his was, I think, my favorite out of the whole movie.
Out of all of them,
yeah. He was my favorite part. Right. I thought he did great. I thought he played the character super well. Uh-huh. Some of the issues that I had with the film, none of them were acting related.
What were they?
Like, I didn't have any, what were my issues with the film?
Right. Besides the dream scene.
I mean, besides the dream sequence. I had a little bit of a pacing issue, which I think we agreed on this, where I was like, after the first death, it's just like, it's one right after another, which I understand why they did it like that. Mm-hmm. But, like, you didn't really get, like, a full scope of, like, why all of them did it, and you didn't really focus on them because it's based around Zac Efron, but I think because there was a time jump from Michael's death to Carrie's, but we didn't see any of Carrie after that. So it's like we're focusing on Zac Efron in that time jump, and then we understand that Carrie's having some issues and he kills himself, and so it's like I wish we had seen more of like what that struggle was for him, because since Zac Efron's the only one that didn't die, he was the only one that we really focused on.
Did you?
I think that,
Did you see Killers of the Flower Moon, Brooke?
I have not seen it.
Okay. Well, you know what's weird is that sometimes it's like we bitch when a film is so long because the director's trying to tell this incredibly long story where you're like, but then we also sometimes complain like, oh, you didn't spend enough time and you kind of shuffled through things. But it's also like, well, you said you didn't want to sit through a 3.5-hour movie and we're trying to tell the whole story in a crammed 2-hour, 2:10 pace. Sometimes I feel like I don't know which I prefer. Would I rather have a film that's a tight 2 hours where I go, wow, they really kind of glossed over the whole death of brother number 2? Or do I want to sit through 3.5, 4 hours of a movie and go, they covered everything, but my ass was killing me. But, I don't know. Do you have a preference? I mean, it's kind of like bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah. It's hard. I think that for this movie at least, like, I don't know if I can say blanket statement, like, for movies in general, which I prefer. But for this one, I feel like there was a couple of elements where it's like, if we had seen, like, the brother instead of Zac Efron, like, there were scenes of Zac Efron that I just didn't think were necessary, that, like, we could have swapped that out for, and maybe made the movie, like, I could have done with the movie being, like, 20, 30 minutes longer. Because I think it was like, what, 2:10?
About 2:10.
It was short.
It was short. I could have done a 2.5 for that.
Yeah, I could have done that too.
But also, like, they cut out the fifth brother. They knew it was
that's what
repetitive.
I was saying earlier too.
I know.
And so it's like, after a certain point, you're like, well, maybe they couldn't do much. But I think that there were certain parts where they could have, like I think we agreed on this. For David, you see him coughing up blood, and then he dies in the next scene, and you're like, well, we didn't really.
It was so fast.
Yeah, and so it's like it was a tough like middle ground of they were trying to do it completely from one perspective,
right,
and like how that felt to him that we didn't really. It felt a little bit like Virgin Suicides. Have you seen that?
Yeah, Sofia Coppola.
I haven't seen that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
It felt different to me because from one, it was like you're not supposed to know anything about them and you just see them killing themselves, and that like helps the movie tonally. But for this, I was like, I feel like I needed a little bit more of a personal relationship to these brothers to like feel it. Okay, that's why I think I thought that scene was cheesy. Is because I was like.
You just don't know the people that much.
Like, guys, what are we doing here?
Okay, final question. Final question for both of you then. One, is there any part of this that makes you a bigger fan of wrestling or want to watch wrestling more?
No, not even a
little bit. Or are you still... No? Not even a little bit? No? We're not going to watch WWE?
While I was watching it, I was thinking... Because my buddy Jake, who I do the other podcast with, he's a huge wrestling fan. And he was like, you guys got to see the Iron Claw.
Yeah.
And I was watching it and I was like, really? Like, this is what you're so into?
I
know.
This
is the thing? That was me, though.
The other thing with the movie, too, is sometimes they act like there was so many stakes riding on the match. And, like, I could see the father watching from the wings, like, when he has his big fight with Ric Flair. And, oh, my God, you blew it. And I'm like, hold on a second. This is all preordained and planned.
I
thought so, too.
I was confused on that.
Yes.
I was like, well, how do they decide...
It's all it's been choreographed completely beforehand. So I'm like,
Ric Flair is out there.
I don't quite get
like talking. He's out there talking, mad shit. And I was like, what? Did they tell him before? Because I think they implied he was supposed to lose. I think they implied that Kevin was supposed to win it, and he like went.
I don't know.
Berserk.
I got a little confused with that.
I think that part of it too might just be like for them, like doing good might just be selling it properly, like putting on a good show, and maybe that's what it was. But for me personally, I think I just kind of chalked it up to me not understanding wrestling enough. Where I was like, I'll give it a pass because I just don't know anything about the world.
But that was their job. Like that was their whole job, was for us to like know what was happening. You know
I guess you're right.
Wrestling is a physically dangerous sport. Because when your guy comes falling off or goes flying out of the ring, you can land incorrectly, you can snap your neck, you can hurt your back.
That one guy died that one time when he was,
Right. But when they are thrown out of the ring or when they land, that is what it was supposed to happen. It's just dangerous because whether or not they do it correctly. Yeah. But they made it seem like things happened that weren't like anything could happen in the ring, and I'm like, no, you guys have been practicing this for months. You know,
that's a good point. When his match against Harvey, whatever, he was like, he wasn't supposed to throw me out of the ring.
Yeah, he said that at one point.
Because that was the whole thing. But I just didn't understand like the because it's like obviously you know who's gonna win if you're like, oh, who does the better performance? Well, you want to know who's doing the better performance? The guy who gets to step up on, like, the top little thing and then jump on the other guy. That's the better performance. Like, that, we already, you know, like, I don't know. It's like your facial expressions aren't really selling it.
I'm never going to get, because I don't watch wrestling, but they still do it. But there's still this dumb thing that's just that wrestling move where the guy grabs the one guy by the other arm. He doesn't attempt to stop it or anything. He throws him across the ring. That guy then voluntarily turns around, hits the back of the rope, bounces off, and comes back. And I'm like, why don't you just grab the ropes and not... I mean, it's like, it's the dumbest move in wrestling, but it's still done to this day. Like, that is... I don't know.
My favorite was the little jump 2-foot kick they would do to someone's chest and then land straight on their chest.
Yes.
Where they like jump 2 foot and then they just like flop on the ground. Yeah. This is the thing. And then they end up like this and then they have to get up. And I was like, dude, if you're face down, I'm just.
Yeah. Just rocking them.
I didn't understand wrestling. It didn't bug me that much. But.
Yeah.
No, I still don't know.
Quick announcement here. Immediately after the PGN podcast, we will begin our after show that's going to be starting today, where Brooke and Jackson will be demonstrating some of the wrestling techniques and formats from the movie Iron Claw. So
for our paying viewers.
That's for our Patreon pair. Okay, so what did you give it, Brooke? What was the score?
I gave it a 3.5.
3.5.
7.
A 7.
7.
I gave it a 7. So I really enjoyed it.
All right.
Some things I would change.
Thank you very much, Brooke.
But this has been wonderful. Sorry, I don't want to
take
over your podcast.
No, not at all. We will have you back very soon. It's good to have.
I thank my adoring fans. Okay.
Yeah. Good to have.
Out of here.
Good to have a female perspective on that. Okay, so she liked it as well. Jackson just got a little more mushy with the dream sequence there.
Most definitely.
A lot of time on Iron Claw. It's still in theaters. It was one of the late entries into movies. It may be not quite what award season is looking for, but I think a very worthy film of your time. Next up here at the PGM podcast, it's one other movie. This one I'm excited to talk about. I actually told Jackson, please watch this before we do our podcast. I watched it the other night. This is from writer-director Cord Jefferson. He was one of the head writers for the brilliant miniseries Watchmen. He was also one of the head writers on NBC's The Good Place and Master of None with Aziz Ansari. He's making his big movie directorial debut here with his script, American Fiction. This movie stars Jeffrey Wright as Thelonious Monk Ellison. He's a struggling author of science and human studies who has grown weary from the stereotypes that have been thrust upon Black Americans and their portrayals in the arts, especially literature. Almost as a show of disdain, he decides to pen a stereotypical novel of a culture that is not only perpetuated by exaggerated media and audience reactions, but he also, despite his arguments and contrary beliefs, at least the ones that he tells his friends, he also wants to be deeply appreciated by this audience as well. American Fiction is, I think, one of the best films of the year. I very much enjoyed this. I thought it was not only heartwarming and a great tale of family dynamics. I thought it was a really, really interesting take on the stereotypes of our culture right now and the norms of which we expect artists to perform, what we expect them to sing about, what we expect them to write about, and what we consume as a culture. Jeffrey Wright gives a fantastic performance here. I think one of the real standouts of the movie, though, is Sterling K. Brown. This is the best performance I've ever seen him give. He is hilarious and almost heartbreaking at the same time during many of his scenes as Thelonious's gay, estranged brother, dealing with a mother with Parkinson's and dementia as well, and the sudden loss of his sister. I don't think I'm giving away too much. It may look on paper like a simple story, but I think there's a lot going on underneath. I think there's some incredibly inventive things they do here, especially with the possible different endings, and a really, really cool moment where he's actually writing the book out with the characters in his office. I think it's not only one of the best films of the year, I think it's one of the best performances of the year. Jackson, what are your thoughts on American Fiction?
We might have a disagreement here.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. First things first, I agree with you. I think the performances in this were great. Jeffrey Wright was my personal favorite. I think that Sterling K. Brown had a great performance. I don't know if I loved his character.
Okay.
Which is a recurring theme that I have with a lot of the side characters in this, is that I think that I have two really big issues with this movie. The first is that I think it bit off way too much than it can chew. Okay. I think that there is a scene in this movie that is so good, and it's between Jeffrey Wright and this writer that he has been kind of like battling with, or like has issues with, and they're in a room together, and it's this great back and forth about like what is okay to exploit in like Black culture for Black writers and all that.
Yep.
And it's so great. And I wanted so much more of that, but this movie takes so many weird turns, because I love the points that we're making, but we get sidetracked with comments on homosexuality and dementia and money and love affairs and drug addiction. And I just wanted to keep it centered, and I think that it spread its wings way too far, to the point where I think a lot of this didn't get wrapped up for me. I don't think that. Again, I think it bit off more than it can chew. The second thing is that this movie wanted so badly to do meta. And I one of my biggest pet peeves with movies is when they kind of like half step into doing something meta and then don't fully commit. It's one of the biggest problems I had with Charlie Kaufman's adaptation.
Yeah.
And it's one of the biggest problems I have with this. I actually did not like the ending for this movie. I was very excited to see what he had to say at the end.
Yeah.
And then I never got there, which was the point. But it was really frustrating for me when we finally get to this moment we've been building up for, and then it's like, oh man, I didn't get to see what he had to say.
Right.
I don't know. This movie just disappointed me a bit. I didn't think it was as funny as it wanted to be. I only had one really big laugh out loud moment, and I can't even remember what it was right now, but I'm sure I can think of it if I took a second. I don't know. It's just one of those movies that bit off more than it can chew for me. It was a little all over the place. I just think that I've seen this bit done better. I think a lot. I think back to Sorry to Bother You a lot. Really great, absurd movie with Lakeith Stanfield that came out a few years ago. But yeah, those are my thoughts personally.
I can't disagree with you, but I can also counter it with that I think I saw this movie as a novel, and in many ways a novel in progress, like the progress of the process of what he's going through in telling a story and the process of putting together a complete and cohesive story. And I think that's why at the end we almost have like the loose endings. One of the hardest things that any author will ever tell you about writing fiction is, how do I end it? How do I end the story? And then you'll have the different voices coming in telling you what the story should be about. Should you put more focus on this? Should you put more focus on that? I think it's almost in the title of the film, American Fiction. It's like, what makes a great fiction story? Is it a story about the loss of a sister? Is it the story about finding your voice as an artist? Is it a story about my brother and his struggles? Is it a story about seeking out fame and not succeeding, or the cost of success? So I get the kind of scatterbrained feel that the movie does give, and I don't disagree with that. But for me, that was almost part of what this entire process was. And I do agree with you. I know it went kind of meta with the whole, I'm writing it, and now Keith David and the other actor are the gangsters acting it out in front of you, and they're like, do you really think I should say that line, or is that the way I would say it?
I don't even mean that. I like that scene a lot. I'm talking more about the ending of like him and the director working together to make the movie.
Work it out. See, to me, that kind of encapsulates pretty much what we were going through the whole time. Is this a comedy? Is it a drama? Is it about my relationship with the woman across the street? Is it about two sons and finding the love of a mom? For me, I agree it was scattered, but I never felt the point like nothing is not getting the focus that it needs. So everything that you say, I agree with, but everything that you didn't, like it didn't work for you, it worked.
Right, it made it better for you.
It made it better for me.
I can see that too.
Because to me,
I can fully see that too.
I felt like the whole movie was the process of making American fiction. Like if I would love to see Cord Jefferson in an interview and talk about this movie, because for me the movie is almost the process of writing American fiction. So definitely I think one of the best films of the year. It's getting an A- for me. I really liked American Fiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. See, and again, I can see every point that you're making. I just think that for me it didn't hit as much. I would have loved to see a little more, and I think intent was the thing that was missing for me, where it was like I see where you're coming from now, and that makes a lot of sense. But I don't think it didn't seem purposeful when I was watching it.
Okay.
And I think that's where the disconnect came from. But again, Jeffrey Wright performances were fantastic in this. I would have loved to see way more from Sterling K. Brown. Jeffrey Wright really is. Interesting enough, Jeffrey Wright has one of the best performances in Asteroid City. Fantastic monologue from him in that. Yeah, really, really great stuff from him. He was in French Dispatch too, but I don't really remember much from him in that. But he was great in that as well.
He's fantastic.
I'm gonna have to give this a 5 though. I was pretty split on this. I know. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm sorry.
Listen, Jackson, you can't love all of them the way I love them, Which brings us to our final.
Wait,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have one more thing to talk about.
Oh yeah, no, please.
Because I did go to see Zone of Interest
a second time. Now
a second time
before
coming up on a third with her whenever it comes to wider release.
Before you say anything, the Zone of Interest was picked as the #1 film on the list that I sent you, the Cinefins, who there's a million top 10 lists that are starting to circulate. I've always kind of liked Cinefin. I like their approach to movies, even though I don't always agree with them. They picked it as the best film of the year. You've already said, pretty much stacked your hands and said it's probably going to, after it settles in, probably going to be, if not the best film of the year for you, it's going to be top 3.
Yeah.
Did the movie resonate even more, the same, or were you slightly taken out the second time?
It was somehow better.
Wow.
I don't know. I think that on the second time I was able to kind of stick, because you know what's coming. I was able to sit back and really pay attention to what he was doing.
Gotcha.
I saw it with 2 other guys. They hadn't seen it before, and so I got to watch their reaction too. And they call it, because it's Jonathan Glazer, they call it getting glazed, because he lulls you into this. He's so conscious of what he's doing that he lulls you into this boredom, and then it's just these small moments.
Yeah,
where
very
you're like,
small.
oh, jeez. I actually liked the overture a lot more this time, the opening one, because I think that there was not as good sound in the theater that we saw it in.
Okay.
Because seeing it this time, I was able to notice a lot of background noise that might have hinted towards us maybe being in the camp during the overture.
Oh.
Some voices, some scuttling that maybe you were here in one of the chambers at the beginning of it. And then me and my friends that saw it have now deemed the final moment the cut, because it was so effective for all of us that we think that it was just like that good. They just call it the cut.
The cut.
Leave it at that.
Wow.
Yeah, just a phenomenal film, and I wanted to touch back because I think that I will see it again, and I'll be back when I see it a third time, and we'll talk about it again then.
Wow,
so,
interesting. It's been a great. It's been a really good run. Now I hate to break it to you, I don't think Zone of Interest is going to be this year's Everything Everywhere All at Once, or even
unfortunately not,
or even this year's Parasite. But it's been a good couple 3-4 years of movies here. There's been real powerhouse film. Sure. It's I can remember it wasn't so long ago even you and I would talk back when you were in high school about the Academy Awards, and you'd be like, who cares? I don't really.
I mean, when you think about Oppenheimer, was one of the biggest movies of the year, and it was a 3-hour biopic about a scientist, and it was just like I feel like in past years no one would have seen that, but for some reason this was just a great year for movies, for sure.
It was. I hope movies are back, and I hope the box office continues to grow and people continue to go see these on the big screen. Speaking of big screen, we will be back next week. 3 new movies are opening in theaters next week. As always, we will attempt to see as many as we can. I mean, we're AMC Stubs people. We got 3 movies a week. We got to go see some of this. Next week, we will hopefully be back with reviews of all these, or at least 1 or 2 of them. Memory is opening next week. That's a movie with Peter Skarsgård and Jessica Chastain about a man who may or may not be suffering from dementia. Here's one Jackson's really excited about ever since he saw the trailer. Jason Statham is back as the beekeeper. That's right. Not only does he keep bees, he kicks ass, the beekeeper.
Awesome.
And then really shocking that this is getting a January release date. It is the movie adaptation of the hit Broadway musical Mean Girls, brought to you by Tina Fey. That is also opening next week. So we're going to try to see some of those maybe, as well as Maestro, and I Need to See Asteroid City, and All of Us Strangers I know is on our short list.
We have tickets to see All of Us Strangers on Monday, so I'll definitely see that. And I think that she also wants to see that new movie with Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Cowell, whatever his name is, the guy from Top Gun. So I'll have a review of those.
Is that anyone but one, or all but one, or
anyone but what's the Schlegel?
What?
What's the movie with Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney called again? Anyone but you.
Please tell her that. Please tell her that your sister went and saw it and said it was wretched.
Oh no!
Yeah.
So apparently Killian saw it. She's not paying attention anymore, so I'll tell her later. She's full. She tuned me out.
What?
Killian said that she saw it and it was horrible.
Bet.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't look like
she's got A-list now, so we've got a plan to just burn through. Why not?
All right,
we're here. So.
Well, there you have it. Three big new. I don't know about big, but 3 new movies next week. We're going to finish up the award season. Coming up very, very soon, probably within 3 to 4 weeks, as we get closer to the Oscars, we will have our top 10 best films of the year and our top 10 not best films of the year.
Yep.
But also, again, this week, it's back. It's Love It Like Me Films. That's a chance for Jackson to pick a movie that he absolutely loves, that he's so hopeful that I will love just as much as him, and vice versa. Jackson, what are you making me watch this week in the hopes that I will look at it with such admirable eyes as you do?
I have a really great film for you this week, Dad. I'm very excited for this.
Well, you say it's great, but I'll be the judge.
Yeah, this is not only my attempt to make you love this movie, it's also an attempt to hopefully win you over to a genre.
Oh, no.
This week, I know that you have a hard time with animation.
Oh, no.
So, no, don't worry.
No.
This movie, no.
Okay.
This movie is only an hour long. So if you hate it, it's only taking an hour away.
Okay.
This is made by a small independent animator and filmmaker. I have his name right here. It's Don.
Where am I going to find this? Am I going to have to smuggle it from a Blu-ray store?
No. I'll send you the link. It's on Vimeo. You have to rent it, but it's on Vimeo.
Okay,
so you'll have to watch it on the computer, on Conan's computer, and plug it into the TV. It's entirely created by Don Hertzfeldt, and this movie means so much to me. I think that it is crushing. It is beautiful. It is heartfelt. The animation style is so simple. It's stick figures and it's penciled. It's penciled in, but I'm really hoping that you are able to connect with this. Okay. I'm recommending you It's Such a Beautiful Day, directed by Don Hertzfeldt.
It's Such a Beautiful Day, an hour-long, low-budget animation movie that no one has ever heard of until next week, when I hopefully
when you fall in love with this movie
as much as you do. Oh.
Yep.
Okay, so here's the thing. I was torn between 2 movies, and I did not decide on which movie until right this second.
Okay.
And the reason I am picking this one is because since you are making me watch animation,
what are you going to...
You are going to watch...
I know what you're saying.
A musical.
Why?
But,
oh, boy.
But I have a feeling. I just have a feeling you are going to love it as much as I do.
All right.
This movie is from 2007, and some people would even argue this is not really a musical. It is. Music is the heart of the movie, but it is not your typical format of a musical. It was directed by
a good start.
Directed by John Carney, who really has gone on to do a little bit here and there, but this is his big claim to fame. And this musical movie was actually turned into a huge hit stage musical on Broadway. Now they changed the story a little bit for the stage, and they added some more songs.
Of course, can't have shit when it comes to musicals. Always got to go in and mess everything up.
The name of the musical is Once. It stars...
Oh, I do know that you love this movie, actually. I do.
Yes.
I do know that you love this movie.
It stars Glenn Hansard, who wrote the music for the film and performs it, along with Marketa Inglova. It is...
Oh, yeah.
It is a film that I think, if you go in with open arms and open eyes, you might actually come out and go, that one got me. But we'll see. All right,
it's the same guy who did Sing Street, which I haven't seen, but I do know of.
Yes, Sing Street I think was his follow-up.
All right, listen, I'll give it a chance.
And is Brooke?
Well, I don't have a choice, but I'll give it a chance.
And is Brooke there? Can we get Brooke back on one more time before we sign off?
Yeah. Brooke, my dad wants you back.
Just for a second.
He's coming.
So as she makes her way back, I want to remind everyone to please follow me on Instagram at Regan.Burns and follow my son on TikTok and all the other social medias at Jackson N. Burns. Please like and subscribe to our podcast wherever you are listening or watching, whether it be YouTube or Spotify or whoever. And a big thanks to Brooke for her thoughts on the Iron Claw this week as well, our little guest star. Brooke, I don't know if you know this or not. Jackson and I play a little game now called Love It Like Me, where we force the other person to watch a movie that we love in the hopes that my sibling or his father will love it as much as that. Jackson's making me watch an animation film this week.
Dude, you're going to feel so bad when you watch this movie and call it a cartoon.
So I am making Jackson watch a musical. The musical I have selected is a movie called Once. Have you seen that? Once. No. Okay. I would like very much, if you guys can, to watch it together. Because I think
Have you seen Sing Street?
No.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. It's called Once. And I don't know if you're are you a fan of musicals?
I'm a big fan of musicals.
Okay. Well,
I love musicals.
Jackson, if you're not watching, is shaking his head in disdain.
When I blow my brains out, you can go ahead and give your review in my place.
Okay.
From watching.
So I want you to...
You liked Mamma Mia.
So I have 2 assignments for you this week, Brooke. I want you to, 1, if you can, try to plan a date with Jackson and curl up and watch the movie Once. And before it starts, I want you to look at him and go, open your head and your mind and be willing to like this. Remind him that he has to give it a very good chance.
I liked all that jazz, okay? I liked all that jazz.
All I'm saying is he didn't even like Pride and Prejudice. So
that's not a musical. Pride and Prejudice is just a bad movie.
Well, Brooke, you were a great guest until you brought up that analogy, because I am not.
You don't like Pride and Prejudice? Both of you are wrong.
You know what? You had a good run. You had a good run. If I could just take that AirPod back, I think that you've outstayed your welcome.
Thank you so much for listening and watching the PGN podcast. We'll be back next week with Jackson and maybe Brooke's thoughts on the movie Once, as well as plenty more new reviews. Until then, thanks everybody for listening. Love you, buddy.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Brooke.